for the full size, for the pool size, and so on, right? So let's see how are we gonna be able to do this, right? Hopefully we can do this together. All right, so again, nothing fancy right here. We have simply a polyline with an arrow, and let's see how we can implement this dynamic clearance to our dynamic door. So the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna first select our arrows right here, or our geometry, and I'm gonna simply use the Control Shift X on my keyboard. That's a shortcut to cut base, right? And I'm gonna cut it from my base point right here. So I'm gonna click, and then I can edit my block or go to the block editor by right clicking on it. And now I'm here inside the block editor environment. I'm gonna simply use the Control V shortcut on my keyboard and place it exactly on the base point, like so. Again, all of these different dynamic doors, we already created it in the channel, right? So we don't have to waste time again showing you how to create these doors, because we already did that. So, but we want to improve this, right? We want to keep making our lives easier, guys. And let's see how we can do this. All right. So in order to be able to generate our clearances with the right dimensions, I already got a PDF right here that I'm going to show you. Is this one right here, and it's basically some dimensions for our clearances, right? People who work in architecture might already be familiar with this, but if you don't work into the architecture field, that's not a problem. This technique can be implemented for many different purposes, right? So you might be an electrician. If you learn this technique, it's gonna save you so much time. You might be a civil engineer. Doesn't matter, as long as you learn how the concept of this technique with dynamic blocks, you're gonna be able to implement it in whatever block that you have, right? So but for this example, I'm gonna use again accessible clearances for doors, because if you didn't know, I'm into the architecture field, right? Okay, so this chart or this illustration is going to help us for the dimensions. So let me put it on the side. All right, and let's keep moving. So now what we have so far here, and I'm going to focus on this top area first, right? And what we have right here is this condition right here, front approach condition, and that's 60 inches on this side and 18 inches on the pool side over here. All right, so just remember those two numbers, because that's what we're gonna use. All right, so we already have 60, but I'm just gonna make sure really quick that we do have. So here we go, 60 inches or 5 feet. And over here on this other side, we should have 18 inches. Let me see, 18, and that's what we have. So far, we're good, right? The arrow is very important also. That's the direction of how people are accessing this door. So the arrow, again, just let's double check. That's correct. It's going towards this side, the front approach. So it's pointing to our door. Let's see, our arrow right here is pointing to our door. Great. So one of the first steps is to start adding some parameters and actions, right, to make this block more helpful. And the first that I'm going to add is the linear parameter. All right, so I'm going to add the linear parameter following the instructions on the command line, and I'm going to click right here on this base point, like so. Oops, right there. And my second point would be right about here, and finally like so. Right, so first of all, I'm gonna name this correctly. So because if we don't do that, we're gonna start getting confused once we start adding more parameters, more actions, more informations. So I'm gonna go to my property palette right over here and simply rename this. I can rename this something like maybe pool depth or something like that. So let me go over here and So I'm gonna call this again pool def. Again, that's all up to you, but that's how I'm gonna call it, right? Pool def. And now let's we're not gonna need any of these grips that we're seeing. We have two so far, one here and another one over here. I'm gonna simply go ahead and say 0 right here from the number of grips on my properties, and now we have an exclamation mark. This exclamation mark, for people who are familiar with dynamic blocks, simply means that there is something missing, right, for this parameter to work correctly. And the thing that is missing is an action. So let's go ahead and add an action right here from the authoring palette. If you're not seeing it, it's also in your ribbon authoring palette. So let's add the action stretch, because we want this clearance rectangle or box to quickly increase or decrease in size, right? So we're gonna use the stretch again. So stretch action following instructions says select parameter. So let's select the parameter that we just added it. Now we need to specify a point, a parameter point, and I want it to be right here, this one, like so. Now that is asking to a corner of stretch, and would be this corner like so, and the objects would be all of these, of course. All right, I'm gonna press enter, and here we go. We got rid of the exclamation, the yellow exclamation mark, so that means this parameter is ready. Now let's go back to our PDF illustration just to make sure how are we doing. All right, so we have this side over here. Now we also see that what's going to change is this pool side, the 18 inches. You can see we might have 36 inches on another condition and so on. So let's see over here, we might have 42 inches also. So let's see how we're going to do that, guys. Okay, so in order to be able to make this dynamic clearance work, let's add another parameter. In this case, the linear parameter again, right? And the way we're going to add this is by selecting right here on the block, and then all the way right here, and let's move it up like so. Okay, so that's again to in this case play with the pool width, right, of the clearance. So I'm gonna simply select that and applying the same steps that we previously did, right, for the pool depth. What we did, guys, was simply change the number of grips to 0, because we don't want to control this clearance with the grips. We want to be able to control this with a table that is quicker and easier and more efficient, and we're gonna see that in a moment. So let's rename it. That's the second step that we did. So let's go over here and say something like pool width, right? That's all up to you. Again, this is a way to don't get confused later on. All right, again, there's an exclamation mark. Let's add an action, and the action is gonna be the stretch action. Let's select our parameter. Let's select now our starting point. I wanted it to be right around here, and then it says also specify the corner of a stretch. I want it to be right about here, like so, and my objects to be stretched. I want it to be all of these objects like so, and of course press enter. All right, so we did the same steps. I think there were 3 steps to add the pool depth and the pool width. Nothing different, right? We simply repeated the steps. So let's see what's next now. How can we control these parameters, right? How can we do that? So the way we're gonna do it is adding a table again, but if we go before we add the table, if we go right here on our PDF illustration, we can also see that not only the width and length of our clearance will change, but also the arrow. If you can see right here, this arrow is pointing towards the door, but in this other condition on the pool side is changing directions. This one is the same. So we need to also add another parameter in action to kind of handle this situation for the arrow. So let's see how we can do that, guys. All right, so that's the arrow right here, and the way we're gonna do it is, again, we need a way to rotate this arrow, right? And the way we're gonna do it is, first, it's always a parameter, right? Most of the time, 99% of the time, we're gonna start with a parameter. And if we go right here, there is a rotation parameter that we can use. Following the instructions, I can select my base point right here in the middle of the arrow, and then again specify radius. I'm gonna simply click around here, and I'm gonna press 0 for the angle. All right, so the same thing, there is an exclamation mark. So that means that we can go and add an action. And there is here another rotate action, right, that we can utilize. So let's do that. And let's select our parameter. In this case, this rotation parameter. Let's select the objects. The objects, of course, would be our arrow, right? And let's press enter. Here we go, guys. We added a rotation to this arrow right here, and now what we can start doing is we can start implementing a table, right? Nothing too complex. What we did so far, we added a linear parameter and a stretch action. Over here, the same steps, and then a rotation. Now, how can we control all of these three parameters in action in one single location or in one single way? The way we're gonna do it is, guys, adding a parameter again, and the parameter that I like to introduce you is this one called lookup. So let's use the lookup parameter, and following the instructions on the command line, it says specify parameter location. So nothing different, right? It's the same instructions that we previously had when we added the parameter, the linear parameter, the rotation parameter. Now here we're using the lookup parameter, but the instructions are very, very similar. So you shouldn't be afraid of start utilizing all of these parameters. So I'm gonna select my specify my location. So again, doesn't matter. I'm gonna place it very close to my arrow. I'm gonna place it right in the middle, like so. All right. So now the same problem, guys. We have an exclamation mark, and we know that's not something good. So let's go to the actions and add a lookup right here. There's also a lookup action. So let's add that lookup action like so. And let me go ahead and now, following the instructions, select the parameter, right? So I'm gonna simply select this parameter like so, and then sorry, I was selecting, guys, the rotation parameter, so be careful with that. What we need to select is the lookup parameter, right? So it's right here. Let's select that, and boom, immediately we have right here a nice table right here that we can quickly customize in order to control, guys, all of these different three parameters right here. This one, the pool depth, the pool width, and then the rotation for our arrow.